Welcome to the Smart Negotiator, my latest and newest book, which is covering and embracing the idea of using AI in the world of negotiation. Now, the book is based on a very interesting study we conducted and actually started research in AI in negotiation all the way back in 2019. And the most recent research is from just last year, where we were comparing a lot of negotiators using AI and then comparing them to negotiators not using AI. And the conclusion is pretty clear. Those negotiators who will be using AI will replace negotiators not using AI. That is a promise. So, if you ever wanted to become a better negotiator, your time is now. This is your opportunity to improve your skills in negotiation, your ability to negotiate, and more importantly, create more value in negotiation. An important question to you: why do we negotiate? We negotiate to create and distribute value. I just repeat that message. Why do we negotiate commercially? To create and distribute value. So the big question is, what is it the book is covering? Well, the book is really describing and discussing where and how we can combine the skills of AI with the skills of you and I as human beings. And one of the things we have discovered is that AI can definitely help us in a number of areas in our negotiation. One of them is in our preparation. When you read the book, when you're done with the concept, please don't, and you probably agree with me by then, please don't ever prepare negotiation again without the use of AI. Obviously, it requires we need to know what we need to, how to use AI in preparation. And obviously, it also requires specifically to know what is it we want to get out of that preparation. But preparation is definitely an area where we can utilize AI. Another area is discussing and identifying a strategy. And as I'll be explaining, the strategy is kind of key to any negotiation. And a question for you very quickly is, do your organization have an official negotiation strategy? That's a question I often ask my new clients, and very often there's an enormous amount of silence following my question, because a lot of organizations around the world, even among top major organizations, government and Fortune 500 companies, they don't have an official negotiation strategy. And they haven't defined a strategy either for each negotiation they're getting into. So one of the things the AI can help us with, and the book is discussing, is how can it support you in creating a negotiation strategy. Another thing it can do is helping us during negotiation. We are covering in the book and discussing as well how you could efficiently utilize AI during your negotiation. Now, this is a bit challenging because obviously it requires additional time, it requires talent, and often it requires one professional that is doing nothing but just sitting there doing the communication with your AI. Then a lot of people have been telling me throughout the years that if and when we negotiate with the use of AI, we remove emotions from negotiation. Some feel that is a good thing. Some people feel that's a bad thing. But I actually disagree with most people saying emotions are being removed, because quite often we can help ourselves by using AI, identifying emotions as well. So the book is discussing that topic as well. Then one thing that is very important is that it takes practice. You have to train before you negotiate. And think about it this way. If you look at the Summer Olympics that is happening every fourth year, if you look at one of the most prestigious discipline at the Summer Olympics, that's the 100-meter dash. Don't ask me why, but it's just one of the most popular and most rewarded disciplines at the Olympics. And what does it take for top athletes that is competing at the 100-meter dash at the Olympics to run those 100 meters? It takes them less than 10 seconds. And if you think about it, that's actually really, really fast. If you took a break from this video, walked outside, measured up 100 meters, and timed yourself, I can promise you, you will not even get close. Doing 100 meters in less than 10 seconds is really, really fast. Now think about what I'm sharing with you right now. Those top athletes that are competing every fourth year have been practicing for thousands and thousands of hours to bring their timing down to less than 10 seconds. They are practicing for thousands of hours to compete in less than 10 seconds. This is what I call preparation. So obviously, we have to prepare, as I said earlier, but we should also use simulations. And AI is the perfect partner to practice a negotiation before you actually step into that negotiation. So after you read the book, there will be no doubt in your mind that before getting into any important negotiation, you have to run a simulation. You have to prep AI to behave as your counterpart and then run a mock negotiation before you get into the real negotiation. We also know that AI can support us identifying our next best alternative, or BATNA as some knows it. We just call it next best alternative. So you need to know your walk away scenario. And what I am always addressing with all clients and students around the world is that before you step into a negotiation, you need to know your starting point, you need to know your threshold of pain, and you need to know your target. If you don't have those three things in place, you're basically disqualified to negotiate. And AI, again, can help you establishing these three very important foundations. Communication, I'm sure that you have been using AI as well to improve your communication, reading your emails or your letters just to make sure that the quality is there, the right wording has been used, or at least the grammar is in order. So AI obviously is the perfect communication assistant, and it can definitely help us improve communication in negotiations as well. And then last but not least, it's the perfect tool to review the outcome of a negotiation. We use it tremendously with tremendous outcome already to evaluate contracts draft, to identify variables that should be negotiated, to look at proposals, to do everything we can to review an agreement before perhaps even the final contract has been signed. So these are all the areas that the book is covering and discussing how you can efficiently use AI in negotiations. Now let's backtrack a moment. So who am I? Well, my name is Keld Jensen. I got a doctorate in negotiation with a focus on AI and trust. So that means that I've been studying and researching the use of AI in negotiation and the importance of trust. And one of the surprising conclusions that we have reached through our research is that AI is actually supporting trust, honesty, and transparency. So we have found, to many people's surprise, including myself, that when we embrace AI, we actually see more honesty, more transparency, and more trust in negotiation, which might be a little bit sad that we need artificial intelligence to support us being more trusting. But hey, I don't really care what can help us become more trustworthy and more trusting, because as I'll explain in the book as well, if we have a high level of trust in a negotiation, our transactional cost will drop and our profit will increase. So quick background, I got 3 kids, and those of you with kids will know how many negotiations we're having per year when we include our kids, our spouse, our manager, our boss, our suppliers, our clients, and even ourselves. We actually are often having between 8 to 10,000 negotiations per year. Divide that by 365 days and you might be surprised about how many negotiations we're having every single day. I'm an author of 27 books that has been published in 38 countries in more than 18 different languages, everything from Chinese to German to Lithuanian to obviously English. I'm a professor at 4 different universities, 1 university in the US and 3 universities in Europe. I'm a keynote speaker. I do 30 to 50 big keynotes every year at conferences and major corporations and what have you. And then I run a consultancy company called the Partnership Negotiation Organization. And we have partners around the world, and what we do is assisting clients in their negotiation. It could be pre-negotiation, during negotiation, or post-negotiation. So we can either handle negotiation on behalf of our client, we can assist them in prepping for a negotiation, or we can post-evaluate a negotiation outcome. We also do negotiation assessment. That means we can actually evaluate an organization's negotiator, whether they are very qualified, or not qualified to negotiate. We do a lot of training sessions, everything from 1 day all the way up to 8 days. And then we also, as I said earlier, identify a strategy in an organization. So we help them create a strategy, identify variables that should be negotiated, and quantify these variables. As I mentioned earlier, I'm very privileged of having 27 books released, and I got my first book published in 1998. And from 1998 until this year, as I mentioned, I have books out around the world, all focusing on the core topic of negotiation, collaboration, and relationship. I'm very honored and humbled that publishers around the world want to publish my books, and I'm even more surprised and humbled that so many people, more than 3 million, actually want to buy and read my books. And what is really interesting is that when I ask the audience around the world why they have decided to buy and read one of my books, I obviously get very different answers. The same goes for the Smart Negotiator. When I'm on a book tour with the Smart Negotiator, I'm doing the same thing as I've done with all my books, asking the audience, why have you decided to buy and read my book? And when I'm asking this question in Norway, I get lots of different answers. Asking this question in the UK, I get lots of different answers. Asking this question in the US, I get lots of different answers. Asking the question in Saudi Arabia, I get lots of different answers. But there's one country in the world, regardless how many people I'm asking this question, where I'm getting the same answer every single time. And that one country is mainland China. When I'm asking in China, why did you decide to buy and read my book? The answer I'm always getting from almost everyone is, I bought and read your book because I want to learn how the enemy is thinking. Now, think about that for a moment. I bought your book because I want to know how the enemy is thinking. What is it they believe in? What is it they're doing? Well, again, the Smart Negotiator is focusing on understanding the counterpart and how AI, by the way, can support that. Now, I'm going to offend you for a moment, potentially, because I think you are super egocentric. And you might be sitting there thinking, I'm not, but I would say, yes, you are, and so am I. Because most people, especially in the Western world, has a tendency to step into a negotiation and think about their interest, their value, their cost, their benefit, their target, what they want to achieve, and what might hurt them. And then they sometimes forget there's a counterpart sitting on the other side of the table that has a body temperature basically the same as yours, that may have different targets, interest, purpose, cost, values, and we tend to forget that. Now, the approach from the Chinese negotiator is that I read your book because I want to know how the enemy is thinking. So I don't predominantly buy your book because I want to learn from the content. I want to know what you read, what you studied, because when I know how you are thinking, then I know how to deal with you. So that's an important lesson. And again, something that AI can help us do. Now, we work with major corporations and government around the world. A lot of our knowledge is obviously coming from participating in their negotiation, running the workshops, doing the training. And we have the great pleasure and honor of being able to use a lot of these organizations in our research as well. Last but not least, I am on the Global Guru Top 30 list number 3 in 2025 on negotiation. And that's a list of people that has done something remarkable or unique within the world of negotiation that is kind of important that we understand. Now, our clients often do an endorsement when we've been working with them or doing a workshop. And one of them I want to emphasize, because I'm again very humbled and honored that somebody's saying that, is that Mr. Tarek Amin from Bechtel, the world's biggest construction company, said in negotiation, Roger Fisher pioneered for nearly half a century. Chris Foster influenced the last decade, and Mr. Keld Jensen represent the forefront of modern-day negotiation strategies and expertise. Today, there's no comparison. I'm very proud and very honored that organizations around the world appreciate and embrace the concept of smartnership. Now, why did I write the book, The Smart Negotiator? I did that to help you become more successful. Basically, what we're doing at the Smartnership Negotiation Organization around the world is assisting our clients becoming more successful. I identified all the way back in 1998 that the ability to negotiate efficiently is one of the key skills why some people are more successful than others. If I figured out in 1998 it was some other skill, that would probably what I've been talking about today. But I discovered that the ability to negotiate efficiently is one of the key skills. So I wrote the Smart Negotiator to help you become more successful in your negotiation by using AI. Now, the interesting part in the world of smartnership when we discuss success is that success is not happening at the expense of the counterpart. So I want you to become more successful, but not have your counterpart pay for it. And I'm even interested in your counterpart become more successful, but you shouldn't pay for it. Now, I got a quote here from the very famous American Dale Carnegie that I just loved, because he said many years ago, success is getting what you want, and happiness is wanting what you get. And I think that's so true, isn't it? Success is getting what you want. So when you got what you wanted, you can declare yourself successful. But if you get something you don't want, well, you're hardly happy. What we're also discussing in the book is that as you are reading that book, and that may take you a day or two or three, hundreds of thousands of negotiations are being wasted. And what do we mean by a wasted negotiation? Well, what we mean by a wasted negotiation is that we know that about 1/3 of all negotiations are being wasted by the two parties not reaching an agreement. And now you can always argue, is it success not reaching an agreement? Yes, it could be. If it's worse for you reaching an agreement than not reaching an agreement, then you're obviously successful not reaching an agreement. So when we are talking about 34% not reaching an agreement, we identify that as a failure because we know that those 34% would be better off reaching an agreement with a counterpart where they actually identify or think it's not possible reaching an agreement. So they walk away and thinking, well, obviously it's the counterpart fault. It was impossible to reach an agreement with them. But we know from our study that in one out of three negotiation, it would have been better for both parties to reach an agreement with the counterpart. What we also know is that we have an enormous amount of value that has been left on the table in negotiations where the two parties reach an agreement. Up to 42% of the value in a negotiation is being left on the table without either party identify, capitalize, or utilize that value. That is what we call negotiation economics, or short negoeconomics. It's an award-winning mathematical model I created that is basically looking for the asymmetric value, the difference between your cost and my value, or my value and your cost. Again, something that I discuss in the Smart Negotiator, how AI can support you in identifying that value. And I can promise you that by reading the book, The Smart Negotiator, you'll understand and get the tools to embrace and capitalize that unutilized value of 42%. I'll even go a step further and say, if you don't think there is unutilized value in your world, in your negotiations, after having read The Smart Negotiator, I will happily refund the cost of the book. I'm that sure there is an unutilized value in your negotiations as well. So, as I said earlier, what we know is that we have 34% that is basically being wasted because the parties do not reach an agreement. And we have a utilization of only up to 58% of the value, meaning that the two parties are leaving 42% on the table. Now, when we talk about wasted negotiation, we also discuss wasted negotiation because a lot of negotiations today are happening in a zero-sum game. Let me explain very quickly. A zero-sum game means that I win at your expense. So if I want to get an additional $100, you have to pay for it. If you want an additional $100, I have to pay for it. So my progress can only happen at your expense. This is a very traditional way that we've been negotiating all the way back to be very specific, 1776. So we know for a fact that measuring all the way back those hundreds of years, we have seen that mankind in business, or what we could call modern industrial age, have been negotiating predominantly in a zero-sum game, which is not really very intelligent, isn't it? Because by doing that, we're obviously losing the value of 42%. Now imagine you're going into a fast food restaurant, you're ordering a burger, and when you get your burger and open the package, it looks like this. Somebody took a big bite of your burger. I'm pretty sure you're not just going to sit there and think, well, that's reasonable. Somebody in the kitchen was very hungry, and I'm happy to share. I think you'll find that disgusting. So you'll probably go up to the counter, complain, want a refund, and perhaps even a compensation. And I promise you probably don't want to eat at that place anymore. So why is it that you would never accept losing 42% of your food to a complete stranger, but you are happy walking away from any negotiation and losing 40% of that value? Now, the key thing here is that in most negotiations, you don't realize that you lost 42%. That's why you happily walk away. Sitting in a fast food restaurant, seeing your burger that some stranger took a bite of, it's obviously clear to you that 42% were missing. Now, the good news is that after you concluded the Smart Negotiator, you will know exactly how and where those 42% left and why they were not capitalized and utilized. And you also know how AI can support you in finding that value. Now, we did a huge study where we studied 35,000 professional negotiators around the world. And what we found was that 13%, or I would actually add the word only 13%, of those professional negotiators identified themselves as being a great negotiator. Whatever a great negotiator is, it was up to them to determine what category they would put themselves in. We found that 41% said, I'm okay, but I can certainly improve. I would put myself in that box, by the way. And then we found 42% who said, I'm not a competent negotiator. Now, I have to remind you that that group of the 35,000 people who participated in this study were professional negotiators. That means they were paid from their company to negotiate on behalf of that organization. And if you get paid for something, you're automatically identified as a professional. So they were professional in negotiation. Now, this is an alarming huge number of people saying, I'm not a competent negotiator. I saw a study recently that actually claimed that 55% of legal professionals didn't have any formal training in negotiation. So again, the smart negotiator can help you identifying what skills you need and how you can have AI support you in your negotiations. One of the key things that the smart negotiator is the purpose of the smart negotiator is to clearly understand that we need to reinvent the way we negotiate. And AI is a wonderful tool to assist us doing just that. So my question is really, why are we still negotiating like we did in 1776? The book addresses 4 things, again, where AI can support and help us in all of these 4 things. And let me just very quickly summarize these 4 things that are really important. Because back to my study of 35,000 negotiators, we could clearly see that those negotiators that were more successful were fulfilling these 4 items on the screen right now. And those negotiators who were less successful or not successful at all did not fulfill those 4 items on the screen. Now, the book will discuss in detail all of these 4 items, but let me just go through them very quickly. The first one is strategy. As I mentioned already, a lot of organizations and individuals don't have an official negotiation strategy. We need one. We need to identify whether we are negotiating in a positional game or we are negotiating in a collaborative game. Secondly, we need to understand trust. As I said earlier, I did my doctorate in negotiation with a specific focus on AI and trust. And one of the things we clearly identified is that trust is a monetary value. It's not a nice thing to have, it's a necessary thing to have, because those who are able to generate trust in negotiations are up to 34% more profitable. So that means we can actually capitalize trust with a value of up to 34%. So negotiation with a high level of trust generates up to 34% more value than negotiation with a low level of trust. That's why we named that trust currency, using the 2 words trust and currency and put it together. AI can help us do that, and the book, The Smart Negotiator, will support you in achieving that as well. Then we have the third one, understanding rules of the game. And this is really something that is very important as well. And I'm saying something that you might feel is a bit awkward, but we have to negotiate on how to negotiate before we start negotiating. Think about it this way. There's never been established an international standard on what negotiation might be. So you may perceive negotiation like playing tennis. I may perceive negotiation like playing chess. So if you and I meeting up to negotiate with each other, it's going to be a really interesting game, isn't it? You're playing a completely different game than I am. So it may be very confusing for the both of us. So before starting any negotiation, we have to negotiate on how to negotiate before we start negotiating. Again, AI can support you in that purpose. And last but not least, negotiation economics, negoeconomics. In the future, after you concluded the smart negotiator, I want you to be on alert and identify, capitalize, and utilize up to those additional 42% value that is available in negotiation. I'm just going to repeat again, why do we do commercial negotiation? To create and distribute value. AI can support you in identifying up to those values of 42%. I mentioned when I started that AI won't replace negotiators, but negotiators using AI will. I can't promise you that AI will never replace you and I as negotiators, but I do believe that the human part is an important part in creating value. But as I said, I can promise you that negotiators using AI will replace negotiators not using AI. So what is the learning objective from you reading the book? Well, there's several of them. And if I should just mention a few. When you have read the book, you'll be able to use AI tools to prepare smarter negotiations, and you will actually be a smarter negotiator yourself. The book will help you identify economics through AI analysis. The book will also help you apply AI to strengthen trust and transparency. Reading the Smart Negotiator will help you understand how to utilize AI as a strategic tool, and it will also help you in the transition from tactical to partnership-driven strategies. One of the things that the Smart Negotiator is focusing on is the study that we created. And let me just explain very quickly what this study was all about. We ran a number of simulations, and we had teams consisting of 2 members negotiating with another team consisting of 2 members. So this was a global study. So we had people from around the world meeting virtually to negotiate with each other. The simulation, the content was exactly the same. And what we did was we had one set of negotiations where the negotiators were negotiating kind of old school, not using AI. Then we had another set of negotiations where one side was using AI, the counterpart was not. And then we had the third set of negotiations where both parties were utilizing AI. And what we saw very, very clearly was that in those negotiations, as you can see on the screen right now, where they were negotiating without the use of AI, they never managed to reach an agreement within the time that was set aside for them to reach the agreement. They ran out of time. We saw that in those negotiations where one side were using AI and the counterpart wasn't, they managed to reach an agreement faster than in those negotiations where nobody was using AI. But more importantly, when both sides were using AI, they managed to reach an agreement way faster than both of the other 2 simulations. So by using AI, we could clearly conclude that the negotiation became more efficient. Then we talk about preparation level. How prepared were the negotiators? And in negotiations where none of the parties were using AI, the preparation level was so-so. They were not really well prepared because they had a limited amount of time to prepare themselves prior to the actual negotiation. If we compare that to the negotiation where both parties were using AI, they were extremely well prepared, obviously with the help of AI. Because when we need to get prepared, obviously there's a lot of data, there's a lot of information, and the human brain have difficulties with coping with too much data in a very short time. AI do not suffer from those limitations. Back to negotiation economics, we could clearly see that value realization was way, way higher in negotiations where both parties were using AI, especially compared to old school negotiation where none of them were using AI. So the same content, same simulations, same time available, there was a huge benefit in those negotiations where both parties were using AI. And then the last of these ones, a big surprise to me, by the way, was we saw that openness, transparency, the collaborative approach was very different in negotiation using AI compared to old school negotiation. So basically, transparency, openness, and the willingness to collaborate went through the roof when both parties were using AI compared to those not using AI. So my conclusion, both based on my own study and use of AI in negotiation and based on these peer-reviewed research, is that AI is a tool we need, not a tool that would be nice to have, but is a tool we need to have when we negotiate. Now, I have to warn you, AI is not a shortcut. You still have to be a skilled, educated, experienced negotiator. If you are not educated, not skilled, not experienced in negotiation, and you start using AI in negotiation, it's like you're stepping into a Formula One race car without having a driver's license. You will crash and burn. And the same thing will happen in negotiation. So it's not a replacement of knowledge or skills in negotiation, but it's a very essential tool. Think about a spreadsheet. Think about Word. Think about Googling stuff. Think about whatever you've done in modern technology in the last 15, 20 years. AI is the same step forward. Just a year, 2 or 3 from now, we'll be thinking, how on earth did I ever negotiate without the use of AI? This is something that we are discussing in the Smart Negotiator as well. So why is this book important? Well, it's important because AI is transforming the way negotiators are conducting negotiation, without any doubt. Negotiations will change forever. AI in negotiation is at an equal level as when electricity originally was invented. It's that big of a revolution to the world of negotiation. And those who do not use AI will fall behind. This is a warning, ladies and gentlemen. You need to study AI in negotiation. So, how does AI impact negotiation? Well, first and foremost, it analyzes massive data sets for accurate decisions. It predicts outcomes and save time, and it enhances trust and foster collaborations that we can see from our studies. When we talk about a strategy choice, we basically have three different choices. We can do a zero sum, a partnership, or a smartnership. The big difference between zero sum and smartnership is that partnership and smartnership are so-called collaborative negotiation methods, where zero sum is a positional negotiation method. Now, we discussed zero sum already. I win at your expense or you win at my expense. A partnership is a collaborative approach, but the traditional partnership has its obvious limitation and flaws. And that's why we came up with the concept of smartnership back in 1998. We could also have called smartnership partnership version 2.0 because it's basically just an add-on to partnership. The big difference between partnership and smartnership is that in a smartnership, we have clearly identified all the variables that need to be negotiated and put a cost and a value on those. We have clearly established the rules of the game, how we want to negotiate, and discuss that openly with the counterpart. We have a clear focus on which of the variables that will generate economics, and we also determine how we want to split that value. And last but not least, we have a focus on creating trust and may even verbalize trust with the counterpart. So, smartnership is being discussed in the smart negotiators as well, and how AI can support that pursuit of creating an optimal collaboration. Now, the good news is that AI systems knows of smartnership, they know of trust currency, they know of economics, they know of my approach to negotiation. So when you work in AI, you can already now, even before reading the book, just say to ChatGPT or whatever system you're using, you are now Dr. Keld Jensen. Please negotiate as he would with his knowledge and his experience, and negotiate in the world of smartnership, focusing on economics. Again, prompting is one of the big secrets to be skilled in using AI in negotiation, and the smart negotiators are definitely giving you lists and toolkits to improve that. Now, if I should show you partnership in a more graphical manner, if you remember the zero-sum negotiation where you have the trenches that was confrontational, if you move into partnership, you certainly see that the trends have turned round. And the parties are still, however, pointing the rifle towards each other. So communication has improved, but it may still turn out to be somewhat of a zero-sum game. So what happens when we move into smartnership? Well, the trench is round, but now the rifles are pointing outwards. That means that I'm going to make an additional $100, but you will not pay for it. And you will make an additional $100, but I will not pay for it either. So think about it this way. In a smartnership negotiation, you should open up a negotiation by saying, I'm here to help you reduce your cost, risk, and liabilities and help you improve your profit. Would you like me to help you do just that? I can promise you two things will happen. Your counterpart will look a little bit suspicious, but they will say yes, because obviously that's what they want. And after you get that acceptance from your counterpart, then you should continue by saying, and I expect you to help us reducing our cost, risk, and liabilities and help us improve our profit. Are you willing to do that as well? This is the big difference between zero-sum, partnership, and smartnership. What we did in our study, looking for additional value, was that we looked at thousands of negotiations globally, and we created this pie chart based on studies of thousands of negotiations. Let's assume that we have a negotiation on the screen right now that has a total value of $100 million. What we discovered through our study was that 19% of this value typically went to buy side. So they walked away with 19 million out of the 100 million. Now, what is important here to understand is that neither the buy side or the supply side knows the total size of the value of this negotiation. They can't see that. And when they walk away, they don't know either what percentage they actually got from the total pie. Now, supply side typically walks away with about 39% of the value. So in this case, that will be 39 million. And more importantly, both of these parties may be sitting negotiating, concluding, agreeing, shaking hands, signing the contract, and walking away very satisfied and very happy not realizing that they left $42 million on the table. I repeat, 42% of that value is being left on the table without either side identified, capitalized, or utilized that value. Again, I just repeat, why do we negotiate? To create and distribute value. Imagine you could leave a negotiation with up to 42% more value. This is not a fairy tale. This is real hardcore facts. And we have hundreds of clients to back that up who can actually confirm this is the case. The Smart Negotiator will help you address that, identify that, and capitalize that with the help of AI. One of the many, many case stories we have created is one from ConocoPhillips. They had a very successful negotiation where their director of the well and exploration supply chain went into a negotiation with the supplier. And on just one variable, they negotiated obviously a number of variables, but just one variable, terms of payment, capitalized the mutual value with the supplier of $400,000. All this was just based on participation in a 2-day workshop. That was all it requires. And suddenly there was a change of mindset on how you could negotiate. Imagine that you read the Smart Negotiator and walk out there and suddenly are able to create a value of $400,000, perhaps only $200,000, perhaps only $50,000, perhaps only $10,000, or perhaps only $2,000. It's still been worthwhile your time. Now, the book is really focusing on what is creating a smart negotiator. And as you can see on the screen right now, there's basically some requirements that are needed. One of them is understanding ethics, moral, and trust. Is it okay to lie in a negotiation? Is it okay to bluff in a negotiation? That's something that we discuss in the book. It's also important to understand culture. And again, AI can help us understand different cultures. And culture is not only leaving Germany and traveling to Korea to negotiate. Obviously, there's a culture clash, but culture differences could also just be leaving one company, crossing the street, and stepping into a building of another company. There could be a major culture clash by doing that. The other thing that the Smart Negotiator is focusing on is helping you becoming the head of a negotiation team. You are not capable of negotiating on your own. I know this may sound strange for some of you, and neither am I. We need to negotiate as a team. And the Smart Negotiator will address that and talk about how we can benefit from negotiating as a team. And AI is certainly the new member of this team. Then we also need to understand emotional intelligence. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been participating in a meeting or a negotiation where the counterpart said something that surprised you, annoyed you, made you angry, made you happy, made you provoked? Yes, of course. That just means that it's an emotional process being involved in a negotiation. We need to understand the emotional side. And then listen to what I'm saying now. If communication is not working, I can promise you negotiation is not going to work either. So we need to focus on what we call the competence in communication. And last but not least, obviously, understanding the tools in the toolbox to negotiate efficiently. Now, we have 10 phases in a negotiation, and I'm not going through these 10 phases in this video, but just to explain, if you look at the screen right now, what the 10 phases are. And just to mention the first one, the most scary negotiation, the most dangerous negotiation you will ever be involved in is the one that you don't realize is a negotiation. Imagine you're sitting in your office, suddenly your phone rings and it's a counterpart, a supplier that calls you and say, how come every single time we deliver something to your organization, something happens that will cost us money? This time you gave me the wrong address. I dropped off everything you ordered at the wrong address, and now I'm being told I have to go and pick it up again. That will cost me $7,000, and I want you to compensate me for those $7,000. I know your boss really well. I play golf with him every Sunday, and I will complain to him if you don't give me those $7,000, and perhaps you don't have a job next week. So can we agree that you owe me $7,000? Well, there you go. You didn't know the phone would ring. You didn't know what the demand would be. You didn't even know you're going to be involved in a negotiation 5 minutes from now. So one of the key things that we need to be able to address is, hey, this is a negotiation. It's not just a dialogue between two people. And for each of these 10 phases, we have different ways of identifying the phase and what is important in that phase. And the Smart Negotiator is going to address and discuss that as well. Think about negotiation this way. You have what we call the traditional room for negotiation. And that could be the difference between what the buyer want to pay for something and what is the lowest price a supplier can reduce their price to. So in this case, the buyer can pay 150 for a service or a product, and the supplier can reduce the price to 120. So we have a room to negotiate in this case of obviously 30. But that's not the real room to negotiate. The real room to negotiate is the 30,000 plus the potential of negotiation economics. If we're able to identify and capitalize negotiation economics, several things will happen. The room will expand, so it's not only 30,000 anymore. It could be 50, 60, 70, perhaps 100. It will be easier to negotiate a deal, and I can walk away more profitable than before without hurting you, and you can walk away more profitable than ever before without hurting me. One of the things the Smart Negotiator is focusing on as well is what we call the strategy assessment matrix, something the AI can support us identifying as well. And the way this model works is it's basically help us identify our strategy in a negotiation. And listen carefully what I'm explaining. If you look at the horizontal line, this tells us how important the counterpart might be to us. If you look at the vertical line, that explains how important we might be to the counterpart. Let's assume you're sitting in a negotiation where the counterpart is very important to you and we are very important to them. Obviously, we are in the high impact, high risk, top right corner. That means if we are in that box, we have to utilize partnership as a negotiation method. Not doing that is very unintelligent. On the other hand, if you are in a market where the counterpart is not really important to you and you're not really important to the counterpart, it could be a commodity market selling something standard, easy, that hundreds of suppliers are offering and thousands of customers are buying, well, you might be in the low impact, low risk box, lower left corner. Now, down there, I would not necessarily recommend you using partnership. Down there, you might be purposely choosing to do zero sum. The reason I'm just raising this topic is that, unfortunately, every week I see negotiators stumble into a conference room and accidentally end up in a collaborative or positional negotiation without knowing why, without knowing how, and without knowing how to do it properly. Again, AI and the book, The Smart Negotiator, will help you identify the right strategy for your negotiation. So, and the book, The Smart Negotiator, is basically helping you, empowering negotiator at every single step. So, smart preparation, AI can analyze data to refine strategies before negotiation. Real-time insights, it can provide live support for informed decision-making. And in post-negotiation, you can optimize by reviewing outcomes and identify areas for improvement. When we talk about preparation, and I've done that many, many times, preparation is really the key to be successful. It's very important to understand where AI can help us as well. It can definitely help us to get more knowledge about the counterpart, setting up our own team, casting the roles, expect the unexpected. So what is our plan B? Identify the importance of this negotiation. Do we have to reach an agreement with the counterpart, or could we be successful by not reaching an agreement? Generating an overview of all quotes and alternative, generating the big picture, creating an agenda for us, setting the objective, and be active with bids and bargaining. And last but not least, helping us agreeing on the strategy, zero sum, partnership, or smartnership. Another thing it can do is helping us identify variables that generate economics. So what it can do is it can write down negotiation variables, define your room to negotiate. What happens if you utilize your room for negotiation? What happens if the counterpart utilize their room for negotiation? And what is their room? Do they actually have room to negotiate? And remember the quote to the right. If your costs are below the profit of the counterpart, you have generated economics. Back to what I talked about in our study, we have found that AI support more transparency, more openness, and more willingness to collaborate. Now, we all enjoy the comfort zone, but nothing grows in the comfort zone. So I love this graphic here because it really shows us what is required for a negotiator to become more successful. You need to move out of the comfort zone. But what happens when you leave the comfort zone, what you typically do, the traditional way you have been negotiating, that feels discomfortable. It's not very comfortable leaving the comfort zone. But value creation is happening outside the comfort zone. And once again, AI is able to help us by taking a critical look at the way we negotiate, if we know how to do it and how to get the right help from AI. There are some preconditions to be successful in smartnership and using smartnership, and one of them is having a well-functioning personal chemistry based on trust and openness. Sounds easy, much more difficult in reality. Both parties must believe that collaboration will give us better negotiation outcome. We need rules of the game. That means we need to negotiate on how to negotiate. It requires obviously rational and skillful negotiators. It requires a well-functioning communication. And last but not least, it also requires that we can be generous, accepting that the counterpart might be profitable, and perhaps even that the counterpart are more profitable than us. So, one other thing that the Smart Negotiator is focusing on is helping us mastering AI through effective prompting. I'm sure you heard already that prompting is a key thing in being successful in AI. And this is one of the things I have focused on in my new book. So it can unlock potential in negotiation by crafting precise prompts to get valuable insights from AI, enhancing your negotiation strategy and the decision making. By creating effective prompt for negotiation preparation, it can help you create simulated negotiation. So you should use AI to simulate real-world negotiation, generate counteroffers, and predict likely outcomes based on different roles. It can do scenario testing and outcome prediction. So it can basically help you explore various negotiation dynamics, testing those strategies and create an analysis to refine your approach. It can also help you, generally, the Smart Negotiator can also help you creating your AI negotiation agent. And AI as your negotiation agent helps you with preparation, conversation, simulation, and creating a strategy. It can also help you create a more goal-oriented planning. So set clear goals for AI to maximize collaboration and uncover value. And then obviously can also support you in a dynamic strategy refinement. Using AI for effective negotiation planning is key. And if you are a bit confused on how to do it, well, the Smart Negotiator is the book for you because it can give you tools on how to set up AI-powered negotiation simulation. So you can use AI to simulate negotiation, test different strategies, and refine your approach based on counterpart priorities. It can also help you identify risk and strategy optimization. So it can identify risk, analyze market trends, and adjust strategies dynamically. AI will be very, very efficient in helping you create value discovery, negoeconomics. So it can look at trade-off analysis, scenario simulation, and definitely create checklists as well. And the Smart Negotiator will give you checklists for how you can use that efficiently in setting up AI in your negotiation. The Smart Negotiator is also helping you generating a negotiation role play. So what is required? For instance, you can define the scenario by providing a clear context. For instance, you can say, you are my negotiation counterpart. I'm negotiating the price of a service contract for whatever the scenario might be. You can help yourself by asking AI to assign roles. Be specific about the roles you want AI to play. For instance, act as the procurement manager who is prioritizing cost reduction in this negotiation. So you can practice challenging scenarios with AI. For instance, price negotiation. Practice tough price negotiation by prompting AI. You could say, push back on my price reduction and demand additional services. You could test responses for complicated scenarios by saying, simulate a negotiation where delivery time is critical for me and cost savings are critical for you as the counterpart. You can also focus on using AI for decision-making in negotiation. And as I said earlier, it could be trade-off analysis, it could be prioritization, or scenario modeling. And then we also in the Smart Negotiator look at how we can balance logic and emotions in negotiation with the use of AI. So AI-driven logic is perfect because we want, and by we, I mean you and I as human beings, might be more emotional. AI has less biases. I'm not saying it doesn't have biases, but it has less biases than you and me. And we combine that more logic with the emotional side, we might get the best possible outcome. We can also use AI as real-time negotiation assistance. So AI tools can analyze ongoing negotiation, tracking counterparts' behavior, and offering insights. And the Smart Negotiator is listing different tools, what they can do, and how they can help you in negotiation. It can give you live suggestions. So these assistants can provide real-time suggestions for optimal response, keeping you ahead in the conversation. and it can enhance your decision making. So, how do we leverage AI for success in negotiation? Well, obviously by improving prompts. The Smart Negotiator will definitely help you doing that. It can help you by setting up the perfect scenario for role playing, and then it can generate more creative solution that you would be able to do on your own. Now, if you just take a photo of this QR code, you can already now, even before you pre-order or order the Smart Negotiator, you can download cheat sheets that I'm happy to share with you. Some of them are from the book, some of them are not. You can download those and see, for instance, how you can generate more efficient prompting in your negotiation. And there's also a list of top AI tools that you can embrace and start using already now. Now, the endorsement of the book before release have been overwhelming. I'm very humble. We have Dr. Clive Rees, who is saying this book is well-structured and thought-provoking, grounded in theory, but with a clear focus on practical application. Linda Swindling, an expert and a global guru on negotiation as well, is saying, when I teach others to negotiate, I challenge them to ask outrageously and be a smart ask. With AI, it is possible to ask better questions and make better decisions. However, until the Smart Negotiator, no one can tell you how to connect AI with human insight, especially in deal making. Linda Swindling also said, until the Smart Negotiator, no one could tell you how to connect AI with human insight, especially in deal making. That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Tom Mills, founder and author of Procure Bytes, a guru within procurement, says this is the book we've been crying out for on the role of AI in negotiation. Packed with detailed and intelligent insight, but sharp and clear in a way that makes this accessible to anyone. This will be my go-to now when looking to understand how best to leverage the power of AI in negotiation. Tom also said this will be my Bible for negotiating using AI. Lars Kroll, professor at Aalborg University, says what makes the Smart Negotiator stand out is its grounded approach and the way it brings AI into the conversation, not as hype, but as a practical tool that negotiator can actually use. Mr. Werner Valeur, a successful serial entrepreneur with several million-dollar exits, is saying the latest book is a vital guide to the future of negotiation, revealing how AI can elevate fairness, efficiency, and mutual value in any negotiation. A must-read for professionals ready to negotiate smarter with both strategy and integrity. Ms. Sally Geyer, the global CEO of World Commerce and Contracting, is saying this book is a vital call to action for those curious and courageous enough to explore how AI can reshape negotiation. The future belongs to smart negotiators, those who engage with possibility, not retreat from challenge. Mr. Tarek Amin, the Principal Vice President and Chief Supply Chain Officer at Bechtel Global Corporation, is saying the Smart Negotiator is an insightful guide that seamlessly integrates the power of artificial intelligence with human insight to accentuate the art of negotiation. He continues by saying this book is essential for anyone looking to master the complexities of strategic deal-making and achieve a superior outcome in today's dynamic business environment. Dr. Gert Tinggaard Svendsen, who is a professor and trust expert at Aarhus University in Denmark, is saying the effective use of AI further amplifies this potential, enabling greater mutual value. I highly endorse this book. I hope you'll find the Smart Negotiator a book that will generate value for you. I can encourage you to link with me. I publish stuff basically every day on LinkedIn. Content, interest, value, something that is interest for the world of negotiators. So thank you so much for paying attention. Thank you for following. And I am greatly honored if you decide to buy the Smart Negotiator. Thank you so much.